What do you imagine nuclear storage to look like? Most people probably view it as the yellow buckets with the hazard sign on it that has green burning liquid seeping out of the sides, almost like in a cartoon. As cool as seeping burning green liquid is, sadly, nuclear waste doesn't look like that. Almost the opposite of a green liquid, it's more of a concrete glass substance shoved into indestructible casks. When people discuss nuclear energy as becoming a more popular way to use clean energy, people seem to have mixed emotions on the topic due to various reasons. A lot of people are concerned that an event like Chernobyl or Fukushima might occur, which both of those incidents mentioned were accidents on nuclear plants where radiation started to seep out into the environment. Chernobyl much more devastating than Fukushima, where they fixed the issue before it turned into another Chernobyl. So yes, it is common to think of these accidents in regards to nuclear plants, but these issues have been primarily solved over time. People think the biggest issue when using nuclear energy is the disposal of nuclear waste, but there really isn't that much nuclear waste to dispose of, and the waste that has to be disposed of has been perfected to a T. Nuclear waste is never an issue if there is good management and safe storage, which in the case of almost 100% of nuclear plants, both of those key things are apparent. When you really think about other sectors of energy are handled, you see the comparison to nuclear power and think, wow, nuclear energy is properly handled and the non-clean energy has almost no bounds. Using fossil fuels, for example, all of the gas and oil are air pollutants, meaning the disposal of these are just going out into the air. That means you are breathing in the disposal of fossil fuels, and our atmosphere is also reaping the consequences of poor management of that specific type of energy. Which leads to the main question of this video. How is nuclear waste properly managed and stored? Before we go any deeper into the process of managing nuclear waste, we have to cover some basic fundamentals, such as, what is nuclear waste? It is commonly described as a type of hazardous waste that contains radioactive material. Nuclear waste can also be called radioactive waste. Anything that emits alpha, beta, or gamma radiation is considered to be nuclear/radiated waste. In a nuclear plant, there are three types of waste produced. Low-level waste, which is usually paper or gloves that come into contact. Intermediate-level waste, it decays over time with some minor assistance. And high-level waste, needs to be in a cooling pond for years before being stored. People usually talk about the high-level waste as being an issue, like the Fukushima incident was heating rods that were stored in the cooling pond, and the cooling part of the pool broke, and the water started evaporating because the radiation wasn't being cooled, leaving the radiation to start to seep out. However, incidents like Fukushima are rare, and there are systems in place so the parts to the well-oiled system don't go awry. And to ease your overall mind, 95% of nuclear waste stays below that high-level waste line. That lovely percentage means that the majority of waste decays on its own naturally, saving us from having to manage and store it and keeping people naturally safe from being exposed to major levels of radiation. In total, only 500,000 tons of nuclear waste has been generated. However, a third of that has been recycled into other uses. As you can see, the perception of nuclear waste seems to be much more dangerous and scary than how it really is. The excellent thing about the storage of nuclear waste is the fact that, if stored properly, it has no records of affecting any health problems nor environmental issues. But I think the question we truly want answered is, what is the future of nuclear waste? If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. What is happening with nuclear waste now? Like we mentioned before, nuclear waste isn't the hyper-colored bubbling liquid from TV shows we watched as a kid. It's been described as reconstituted nuclear material and ceramic and glass, encased in many kilograms of concrete and steel. That is the material that is taken and stored in these giant indestructible casks. You're probably thinking, how indestructible are these casks? Well, one of these casks can withstand a train running through it. That's how safe these storage units are made. There will be no accidents where something spills out, because in reality, that isn't possible. Plus, if the storage wasn't safe, it would be concrete inside, not liquid. The other way some of the high-level waste is stored is in cooling ponds for about 10 to 20 years, before being put into casks and buried underground, which leads into the next point, the future of nuclear waste. Nuclear waste for many years and in present day have been stored in huge casks that are above ground, but aren't the most sustainable, as they can't withstand a hurricane nor a tsunami. But new technology and research has been working towards an even better way to hold our nuclear waste. The best option is deep geological disposal. It's exactly what it sounds like. Dig a big hole for the casks full of waste and leave them there. Scientists realized that there needed to be a way to interact with this nuclear waste that was less human-based and more machine-based. For safety reasons, and deep geological disposal is just that. They would be using the same type of tools that we already have to dispose of certain fossil fuels, to make 18-inch holes that could be filled with a multitude of those casks. In these holes, it means they can't be affected by common disasters, like earthquakes, hurricanes, etc. It is literally natural disaster proof. Some of the complaints I've touched on earlier have been a real stress to the public for the safety of the community. People are worried about the casks breaking and being reliant on human interaction, which has been majorly addressed with the Deep Geological Disposal Plan. However, even if that idea wasn't fully accepted by the whole of society, certain countries that are in avoidance of natural disasters and etc. have been offering up permanent land to hold disposal sites, like Finland. Finland is also building a site underground to avoid a lot of these major stresses. So, if nuclear waste isn't as bad as we thought, what is? As previously mentioned, fossil fuels have been a major issue for our own public safety and for the overall health of our planet, and it's much more worse than any nuclear waste. Fossil fuels are truly what people view nuclear waste to be doing: overall harm. A coal plant pollutes more annually than a nuclear plant can in its lifetime. When you put that in perspective, it can be kind of crazy. Like I touched on before, there is not a lot of processes in getting rid of the waste from fossil fuels, mostly just letting it pollute our air and getting into our lungs. A great example is Beijing, China. The air quality, because of all of the pollutants, is beyond horrible. People bring up Chernobyl, which was a horrific incident that occurred and hurt thousands of people, in defense as to why we shouldn't have nuclear energy. However, we seem to forget the accidents caused by fossil fuels, like the BP oil spill back in 2010. The oil spill affected a range of marine life, causing organ and reproductive damages. And when certain groups of animals are dying off, it affects the overall ecosystem, which in return directly affects us. The two issues are both complicated, so no Chernobyl and BP's oil spills have different sets of consequences and harms. But it shows the perspective that people seem to lean into one and not the other because of the perception you've been told for so long. As we've learned about radioactive waste, it sadly isn't like how you'd see it on Saturday morning cartoon, but overall, luckily, is a lot safer. Nuclear energy is a great way to produce clean energy and has a lot more pros to it, but because of the negative perception on the handling of nuclear waste, society seems to be rooting against it. Nuclear energy would help us avoid the path we're headed by getting away from absurd uses of fossil fuels, and it gives us a more permanent, constant tool. Nuclear waste is stored in some of the safest ways and managed with the most responsible workers. In the comments, tell us if you learned something new about nuclear waste management and storage. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.